So the plan is to make a quick holder so that I can machine a case and have it in my hand, actually see it, try it on my wrist, and crucially test the way I'm going to mount the dial in there, which I've certainly never done before. And also I want to use the same holder to machine the exterior of the case back, and I'm concerned that perhaps what I have, the design may have the thread wall too thin. Here I'm curving the surfaces of the holder. I've read of the merits of not having like a hard shoulder against or at the point where parts flex, and I'm trying to make a holder that expands out. This part will press into the end of it and expand out the holder inside the case movement, gripping it so that I can then machine it. The slitting went well, but you can hear the saw's I'm not using all the teeth, not well centered on the arbor. I need to machine some form of washer or bushing that will accurately locate to the inside diameter of the cutter and also the outside diameter of the holder, whilst not being too thick to let me screw and grip it. Tried the holder, pinged the part off, away we go. Now change the part. So I turned a taper on the holder that would let me hold it in a rotary table, which gives me much more space under the mill. I can point the holder vertically and begin to machine the sides. Also, see, I've hacksawed away the sides much quicker than machining it all away, and I've got some funny little offcuts that I can surely use for something at some point. And using a very simple technique, I take it cut down one side and flip the part 180 degrees, make the same cut with no advancement of the part into the cutter, and that gives me an accurately repeatable symmetrical width of the part. Ping the part off again, begin to learn about the holder. I think after this one, it's clear that I just wasn't cranking down on the thread which pulls that taper into the holder and expands inside the case. At this point I am taking quite a small cut, and I was left thinking that I just hadn't tightened the thread enough. See, flip it, take a cut, flip it, take a cut, advance the tool a bit, advancing in on desired dimension, trying to get this 22mm wide. And of course, ideally, really, actually, has to be perfectly accurately symmetrical on that turn part that I've already machined. You can see in the back there, the initial recess that you can see is down to the depth that the back will be at that height, because the lugs will point up higher. There's a thread under that, and then there's another surface which the dial will actually sit on, extending the will be attached to the dial. Getting very close for that first shoulder in the turn part to turn to the width that I'm looking for. Gives me a good visual reference to aim for. Check that nothing's messing up. This setup, I need to cut, if I'm going to use this again, new studs for the hold down clamps that you can just about see there by the side of the screen. They get in the way, so I have to raise the tool as I'm rotating it. There's no real need for that, and it's unnecessary. I would have done it this time, but I'm trying to race to get this case made just so that I can see what it actually looks like, and I'm not entirely sure that I'm going to make it exactly this way next time. I have quite a bit of trouble with it. And I'm going to try and find a better way. So as I'm finishing off these sides, chasing surface finish, and really not perfectly happy with the surface finish. At this point, not entirely sure exactly where the cause of that comes from. It's a fairly new cutter, probably not the nicest cutter that I could find, and so I move on to milling this is the rear surface, milling that to thickness. Push the tool through. I push the tool through anywhere roughly in the middle, advance it towards one side, and then begin spinning it 180. Once I've taken the second cut, then I have a symmetrical cut. I can measure inside those shoulders and work out how far I have to move it. Got to take a funny dance here to get through to avoid those studs that are too long. This surface that I'm machining here turned out better than the sides, which I had not expected to work out like that. I have to tip it 90 degrees and use the end of a cutter. I suspect better sharpening of my cutters is the way. I've switched to a thinner cutter here to avoid the studs, as they're also too close to the ends, so it's fine. Quite like that curved surface, but I'm machining it square because that was the plan, but keeping that in mind for possible use in future, I am hoping to make a bunch of these cases, which progressively I'll find different aspects to test myself and push further with. Beginning to get the shape of the case. It's looking weird now. You can see how much material I've machined away. Did try and find a flat bar. I've been using 303 stainless, the buying bar stock, and I was rather surprised to find it's stunningly difficult to source 303 flat bar. I could purchase a whole range of different grades of stainless steel and flat bar that would suit this. However, none as nice to machine as 303, and at this point I don't want to switch over entirely to tungsten carbide cutters. This is where stuff gets a little tricky for me. This is the stuff that I was very excited about, milling these angles. So I have removed the holder from the rotary table, put it in a 3-drawer chuck which is mounted on a dividing head, and I don't know, I haven't done this before, but I was expecting to be a little simpler. Here attempting to cut it all, cut like this is the front face that I'm cutting, without taking the tool out. Here you can see is the tool's rotating clockwise, pushing the part off the holder, so I pinged it off again. Having pinged it off, took the opportunity to put it back on the other way around. This gives me the opportunity to better see and measure the depth at which I'm getting to. This is really where I noticed I was having trouble. I'm beginning to cut through this, but this cut, it's not square to the top surface, it's not square to the sides. So the top surface is not square, tilting down. I mean, it's peculiar from the angle that you're looking at it. It's actually tilting down to the nearer side. I'd indicated it in as best I could, but that's tricky, and I'm indicating machined surfaces that aren't terrifically beautifully well machined. Part of that is because I'm just rushing through, but it's always going to be a problem. So I begin taking much smaller cuts and loosening the chuck and spinning the part. I indicated the dividing table in, and then when this issue came up, I did check that again. At this point, I'm square, though. Once you begin to doubt everything, it's tricky to be convinced of that. So once I've got this square again, I'm fancying, of course, I can spin it 180 degrees and finish the next side beautifully. But turns out there's a plate that I'm using to divide 180 degrees on the back, and that can turn a little loose. I've got to disassemble the chuck from the dividing head to access however that is fixed. I want to push ahead, so I'm indicating in each surface, beginning with very small cuts, just to test until I can get it exactly square. The digital angle gauge was very much my friend there. I think perhaps I'm going to want to, if I need to do it like this, machine a holder for that, and the other side of that would fit well onto the cases so far machined to try and push the accuracy of that. Here I'm milling inside the lugs, getting excited because I'm nearly finished. Again, I just push it through the middle, advance towards the end of the case, still far off. And in theory it would be 2mm on the design, and I measure the width of the case and I subtract 18mm because I want to be able to put an 18mm strap in there. Divide that by 2. That tells me exactly how thick the lug should be, and then I advance the tool in, taking nice small cuts, trying to get a good finish. Again, this was the finish on these surfaces is better than the sides and the angled front. The dividing head caused me further trouble, as I wasn't able to, after finishing this cut, spin it 180 degrees. As some of there was a bolt that attaches a back plate to a chuck that screws into the dividing head that would spin on this degree of this is below flat, trying to mill back. I lack the words to beautifully explain it. if you imagine the watch sitting flat in front of you, these surfaces that I'm milling in between the lugs are not vertical, they taper in towards the centre, and no, I couldn't spin it like that. In theory I could have perfectly planned it. The whole point of this is having a go and working out these things so I can decide if I want to be able to do that. That's what I'm going to have to do to achieve it. Because I had to adjust the angle that the dividing head has dipped down to, I lost the cutting depth, but that should be perfectly symmetrical with a well designed setup.
So this is the case that I made. It's a good start. It'll certainly be good enough to test how I'm going to try and mount the dial in the case. I have these edges here and here. Both are tilted askew, not square. I think this is a rotational issue with taking it in and out of the dividing head and messing around. I hope to entirely eliminate that by adapting the dividing head so that I can hold the case once and do all of the milling without having to let go of it. Little bit of work to work out exactly how I'm going to achieve that, but that is now very much the plan, and very happy with the squareness of all of the other sides. Of course, for this side here, it's too far in. See, like this surface here, much larger than this surface here. I've tried to consider everything that could have caused that, and the only thing I think I must have done is I've machined this surface and then rotated it 180 degrees, fed the part in further, and then machined this surface. The whole idea of just machining one side, rotating it 180, machining the other, it should be reliably centred. Both surfaces centred there. I think the only thing that can explain it is I have advanced the part in when I should not have advanced the part in. I don't think I did that, but I think I must have done that. That's the only thing that I can think of at the moment. Further attempts will be good. I mean, this surface and this are centred. So what happened here? I don't think it can be anything to do with the holder or the rotary table. I'm going to have to just see what happens next time I do it, and hopefully the whole process will be simplified by just holding it once, and having made the part once, I'll have a better sense of where I'm going, and it will come across to me far more simply. This is the holder that I made. Tapered part, fitting in the end with the M8 threaded bar. Turn the nut and it pulls the taper in and expands out this slitted section at the top. Worked very well. Originally these sides were parallel all the way down, for I was hoping to just grip it in a 3-jaw chuck in the dividing head, then had to turn a taper to locate it in the centre of the rotary table. The plan now is to use only the dividing head but without the 3-jaw chuck on it, so I will need a taper, but I will also need a drawbar to hold it firmly down into the taper. I think although I could extend this threaded bar to the back of the dividing head, it would be pulling it would want to expand this out further rather than pull the part into the dividing head. So I think this part needs to be threaded here. The drawbar will go just in however far, maybe this far, and then I will screw this taper in from the front. The reason I didn't do it with this is so that I can use it to put a case back on, where obviously this would all be solid, and finish the outer surface. Of course, I am interested in making a case back with a crystalline so that you can see the movement. So perhaps if I've turned that out, then I could even use one that screws in from the top. I have to think through that. But at the moment, that is the plan there. Basically very happy. Learned a great deal. I have a good sense of the process and how I'm going to put it all together now. And most importantly, this will be good for testing how I mount the dial in. And that is the next job.